Hello ladies and gentle ladies, and welcome back to another Forge modding tutorial for Minecraft 1.20. And in this tutorial we are going to be covering ore generation. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is come into our resources, and inside of data and inside of our mod ID, which is tutorial mod, you need to make sure you have a folder for Forge, and inside of that a folder for Biome_Modifier. You'll see I already have that because I've created that for the entity tutorial, which is coming soon. However, you would not already have that, so you just need to make sure you create these two folders here inside of tutorial mod. Next, we're going to create another folder inside of tutorial mod, and we're going to call this world gen. And inside of there, you want a new folder for placed_feature. And then we're going to create another folder inside of tutorial mod. Once again, world gen, but this time it's going to be configured_feature. And we will fill those out later. So what we need to do next is we need to do the usual and register our blocks and block items for the ores. So we'll first come into block init. We'll come down to the bottom, and we'll go public static final registry object. Now for your ores, you can either make it a normal block like we have up here, or you might want it to drop experience as most ores do. So I'm going to make mine drop experience. So I'm going to go drop experience block, and I will start with example ore is equal blocks.register. We'll give it our name, so example ore, and then we'll go a supplier of a new drop experience block. We first want the properties, which I'm going to copy from diamond ore. So block behavior.properties.copy, and I'm going to copy from blocks.diamond ore. And then we also want a uniform int, or an int provider is what it wants. So I will be using uniform int, so uniform int.of, and effectively this allows you to set a range of experience that you want it to drop. So for example, between 4 and 7 would be uniform.int for 7. If you wanted a constant amount of experience, for example, you can do constant int.of and give it a constant value. And there's also some other ones as well, which you can find by going into int provider. If I just find int provider, there we go. And if I go to implementations, you can see the different other int providers that you can use. But I'll be sticking with uniform and constant since those are the simplest to understand. Then we're just going to do the exact same for the deep slate, the nether, and the end. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy those in. So we got deep slate example ore, we got nether example ore, and end example ore. Obviously, if you don't want an end ore, or you don't want a nether ore, or you don't want it to generate in deep slate, or you don't want it to generate in stone, then you wouldn't have to do those ones. But I want those ones to all be possible, so I'm going to use all of those. Next, we're going to need to register our block items. So we'll come into item init, and everything here is just going to be as usual. So once again, I'm just going to copy this across. We just do our usual add to tab items.register, give it our name, give it a new block item of the block, and then pass in the properties. Nothing too special there. Okay, and with all of those done, we can go ahead and actually create the features. But first you might just want to do the usual with these blocks. So you'll want to do the lang, for example. So hopefully Copilot can once again fill me in here. And then you can do your loot tables, which I have already done. So I've already done the loot tables for all of these ores. I've just copied most of the vanilla ores for those loot tables. Keeps it nice and simple. And then you're also going to want your block states and your block models, and obviously your textures, and also your item models as well. I'm not going to bother doing those because I might do them before we actually get into the game, but I'm not going to bother doing them right now. And instead we'll move on to the actual features. So first we want a configured feature. And what is a configured feature? Well, it's pretty much in the name. Effectively, it is a feature with a specific configuration. So to create this, we're going to use the wonderful website misode.github.io/worldgen/feature. So this will be the first link in the description. And inside of here, you'll instantly see it starts us off with a tree feature. So we can obviously change that to an ore feature, and you can add anything you want in here. What we're going to do first is we're going to, let's see, this is the configured feature. So we're going to want to say, for example, a size of the ore that we want. So I'm going to say, for example, 12. And then you can say whether you want it to discard on air exposure. This is the chance that that will happen. You could put like 0.2, for example. And then you can add your targets. So you add a target. And we're going to start with a tag match. And the tag we want is Minecraft : stone ore replaceables. And effectively what this will do is it will check if the block that it's found matches this tag. So you can actually click on this follow reference here, and it will bring you to the tag showing that it will only match for stone, granite, diorite or andesite. And then we just say what we want to actually generate in as that ore in that block. So we want to generate tutorial mod : example _ore inside of the stone. Now instead, if we match deep slate, so we're going once again going to want to do a tag match, and we're going to say deep slate or replaceables. Then instead we want to do tutorial mod : deep slate _example _ore. Now if you had any special properties on your block, such as for example furnaces have the lit property for whether they're on or not, then you would need to add in your properties here as well, just to make sure they spawn correctly with said properties. But we don't have anything special like this, so this will work fine. So all we're going to do is we're going to press copy down here. We're going to come back into IntelliJ, and inside of configured feature we're going to want a new file, and we're just going to call this whatever we want to call our feature. Now since this is just for the normal ore, we're going to call it overworld _example _ore.json. Paste in that JSON there, and boom. Then we basically want to do the exact same thing for the nether and for the end, except the end will be slightly different. Let's first look at the nether. So I've already created a JSON for this, but I will just show you roughly what you need to do. So for example, instead of doing a tag match for whatever tag, you might instead want to do a block match for maybe netherrack. And that means when it matches netherrack, it will generate our nether example ore. And you might want to, for example, turn that off and maybe turn down the size. I'll keep that at 12. And then you could use this for the nether. Alternatively, I think there is actually a tag for the nether. So yeah, you have base stone nether right there as a tag, which would be netherrack, basalt and blackstone, which would be fine. But you might just want netherrack because otherwise it might look a bit weird. It's completely up to you. I'm just going to do a block match of netherrack because the ore texture that I will be using will use netherrack as that texture. And then you can use that. Now I already have that copied. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to do a new file, and I'm going to call it nether example ore.json and paste it in there. Then we do the exact same thing for the end, which I already have copied. So I'm going to create a new file, end example ore.json, and paste that in there. Okay, the next thing we need to do is the placed feature. So the placed feature will define how this specific feature should get placed in the world. So it will define, for example, the count and things like that. What we'll do is we'll come to the second link in the description, which I'll bring over here. And this is once again miso.github.io, but this time it is placed feature. And you'll see here we are starting with something that you can't really read. So effectively what this is defined up here, this quote unquote reference, is a reference to your configured feature that we just made. So if we come back into IntelliJ, we can see that we called our configured features overworld example or. So what we would do inside of there is do tutorial mod overworld. I really can't read that because of how this is poorly designed, but overworld underscore example underscore or. We can check inside of this JSON here to see if that is correct. So tutorial mod overworld example or. You need to make sure that's obviously the exact same name as what you did put in IntelliJ. And then we can effectively give some presets inside of here or some rules for how it should generate. So I'm going to also leave another link in the description which will explain a bunch of these different modifiers, what they do and what they change. But I'm just going to add some of the sort of common ones. Since this is the example or the overworld one, we have the count modifier here by default. Now this is set to a constant, but you can obviously change this. I'm going to give this a constant of 10, and you will see that it updates over here to respect roughly what this would do. So if I said, for example, 100, and you look at this up here, you'll see it's now super common. If I set it to 1, you'll see it's super rare. So I'm going to set it to 10, since I think that's sort of okay. And you can obviously zoom in and zoom out to this as well. I believe each of these squares will be a chunk. I'm not entirely sure, but I believe that's how that works. Then you just want the in square modifier. Almost every single OR will have that, since that just means that it offsets in the horizontal direction in a chunk. So it won't always be in the same place every single time. Then we specify some sort of height modifier. Now you see here it's been set to height map ocean floor. That's just because we were using the tree preset before, but we will actually want a OR. So for ORs you generally do a height range, and here you can define your different range things. So I'm not going to cover all of these, but you have I'll briefly come over some of the more important ones. So you have constant, which is just means it will be constantly at that specific height. Then you have constant plus, which I believe is a squared constant, but I'm not entirely sure. Then you have uniform, which just means it's uniformly distributed across the height that you provide. Then you have bias to bottom, which means it's just biased to the bottom. You have very biased to the bottom, which once again means it's very biased to the bottom. You have trapezoid, which just means it would be in a sort of triangular kind of shape, or more of like a diamond-ish kind of shape. And then you also have a weighted list, which allows you to define specific weights for specific ones. But the one I'm going to be using is trapezoid, because that is most common for diamond, which is effectively what I am going to be attempting to mimic. And I'm going to start with a min inclusive. I'm going to say an absolute value of -40 will be the minimum height. And then I'll give a max inclusive of a below the top. You can also do above bottom, which would be above 0. Below top is above the is the world height. So I'm going to say below top of 10. So that means this OR can generate anywhere from an absolute value of -40 to a below the top of the world of 10. And you can also say that it should maybe plateau at a certain height as well if you wish to do that, but you don't have to specify that one. And another modifier we might want to add here is also the biome modifier, which just means that it will check for biomes, which is rather important to add for most ore generations. So once we've done that, we can effectively copy this JSON. We can come back into IntelliJ once again, and we can create a new placed feature. Now this is the overworld, so we're going to keep the exact same name, overworld example ore.json, paste it in, and boom, that will work. Then you want to do the exact same thing for the nether and the end. So I'm going to do nether example ore.json, and I believe I should already have this ready to go since I created this previously. And then you'll need the end as well, so end example ore.json. Let's see, do I have the end one? I believe I accidentally removed the end one, so we'll have to go ahead and create that one, but it should be fairly simple. In fact, we can keep it pretty much exactly the same. Only difference is, for example, overworld here we change to end. That's very important. And where you specify your heights, you might want to just modify that. So I'm going to say maybe above bottom, maybe 10 above the bottom, and below top, yeah, I'll keep that at 10, and maybe that plateaus at about 50. And yeah, we'll do something like that, and we'll copy that, and we'll come into IntelliJ, paste it in, make sure that the nether one is also nether example ore, which it is. Okay, the final thing we need to do is the biome modifiers, and effectively what this does is it specifies what biomes it should spawn in and effectively what generation stage that should work in. So we'll create a new file in here, and we're going to call it the exact same thing as what we called our features. So we'll start with overworld example ore.json. We're going to specify a JSON object. We're first going to say the type. Now the type that we want to be using is forge add underscore features. Then we want to specify the actual features that we want to add. So the feature we want to add is going to be tutorial mod overworld underscore example underscore ore. Then we want to specify the biomes. Now for this you can either specify a singular biome like Copilot has suggested here, so Minecraft plains, or you can specify a tag. Now I want it to be able to spawn in any overworld biome, so I'm just going to do hashtag Minecraft is underscore overworld. Then we need to say the generation step. So at what stage during the world generation should this add to? Now I want to add it during underground underscore ores. But there's also a bunch of other generation steps. So if you look that up, generation step, and you can see all of the different generation steps. For example, vegetal decoration would be like trees, and then you've got like lakes here, which are lakes, as you can guess. Most of these are fairly self-explanatory. Then we just want to do the exact same thing for the nether and the end. So once again, nether example ore.json. Now you don't actually have to name these all the exact same thing. However, I'm just going to do that just to keep it simple, and I think it's also a lot easier to link them together, since you're not accidentally going to get the wrong name for the wrong thing, which would be very easy to do otherwise. Okay, beyond that, obviously models, etc. I'm just not going to do those actually, because I think it'll be easier to just find the ores if we have a missing texture for the models. So I will see you in the game. Now, first things first, I'm actually going to turn on a resource pack, which is an X-ray pack, and that just means I'll be able to find our ores way easier, since we can just see through the world. So I'm going to go spectator mode. I'm going to go down. I'm going to give myself night vision as well, and if I go down a little bit, there you go, I can instantly see our ore there, and yep, it's there as well. and it just makes it super easy to find when we have all this X-ray. You can see all the ores are very clearly visible. I'll leave a link to this resource pack in the description, as I think it is quite useful. Obviously, don't use it in survival, guys. Come on now, it is a bit cheaty. But yeah, it is very handy for testing things like this. And yeah, you can see the ores really easily. We should be able to find some down here as well. Okay, fantastic. And that is it for the ore generation. The next tutorial will be recipes, and it'll be coming out straight after this one since I accidentally missed the video yesterday. And then probably on Thursday will be the start of the entity tutorials, which I have already recorded. As you can see, I'm going to spawn it in like this, and it has animations and stuff. So the start of that series will start on Thursday, and we'll cover all of those things. But yeah, that is it for ore generation. So if you guys obviously enjoyed, please do be sure to give it a like and subscribe. Also, if you have any problems, feel free to join my Discord server, which is linked in the description below. And yeah, I'll see you in the next tutorial. Goodbye.